Okay, the 153 great fish of John 21:11. Okay, various numbers in the Bible are carefully chosen and are full of significance. For example, 40 days often stands for 40 years, as in Ezekiel 4:6, which we have in the presentation now. And when you have completed the
Excuse me, brother, but we're getting a lot of static from your microphone.
Okay. And also I've got this bar which shows me the brethren, which covers part of my presentation, which I cannot read from it. I don't know how to change it. So how to move this bar.
You can get rid of that by clicking something or move it to the very top.
Okay, yeah, but I don't seem to be able to do anything. Oh, now, maybe now. Yeah, now I got rid of it. Okay, and yeah, okay. So I hope now we will be able to proceed without any further problems. So we've got Ezekiel 4:6 right now, and it says, "And when you have completed them, lie again on your right side. Then you shall bear the iniquity of the house of Judah 40 days. I have laid on you a day for each year." And this verse shows that 40 days here is used to mean 40 years, according to the principle a day for a year. Okay, another example might be the 1 Samuel 17:16, which says, "And the Philistine," and by the Philistine Goliath is meant here. So once again, "And the Philistine drew near morning and evening and presented himself 40 days. As we remember from this Bible story, Goliath boasted and was challenging the Israelites to a single combat, but since he was so big and so strong, nobody was willing to go and fight him for 40 days, not until David came to the Israelite camp, and he was the one who fought with him. And here we've also got 40 days representing 40 years during which the antitypical Goliath, which stands for the theory of evolution, boasted its supremacy over God's people and their beliefs until antitypical David, that is Pastor Russell, dealt it a mortal blow by means of hitting it with the stone of ransom doctrine, which in the eyes of then God's people in the truth movement disproved evolution, showing that Christ didn't die for an ape-shaped creature, but died for a perfect man. So in reality, there is no evolution. Instead of evolution, we have experienced devolution, a process of deepening degradation. Therefore, evolution is an impossibility. I have quoted these two scriptures from Ezekiel and from the first book of Samuel to show that numbers in the Bible can have symbolic meanings and that days often stand for years. Now we come back to our main verse, which is John 21:11, where we read about 153 great fish. What is the significance of the number 153 found in John 21:11? Why should special mention be made that there were just 153 large-size fish in the net on this occasion, and that nevertheless the net was not broken? Evidently, there is some special significance in it. The number 153 is not found anywhere else in the Bible, and because of that, we can't derive any conclusions as respects its meaning from any analogous use of it. The number 153 can be presented as the product of 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 17, as you can see. 153 is the product of 3 multiplied by 3 multiplied by 17. Then we have 53. And this suggests the little flock. How? In this way. The 3 used twice suggests that which is very good. The 17 may be broken down into 10 plus 7. 10 suggests the perfection reckoned to them, which is the little flock, in the flesh, through Jesus' ransom merit, because 10 is the number of human perfection. And 7 implies their final actual perfection in the divine nature, 7 being the number of divine perfection. We will be able to confirm that the number 153 represents the little flock when we compare the account of the miracle in John 21:111 with the parable of the dragnet in Matthew 13:47-50, and with a similar miraculous catch of fish recorded in Luke 5:1-7. So let's have first a look at John 21:111. After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, and in this way he showed himself: Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together. Simon Peter said to them, I am going fishing. They said to him, We are going with you also. They went out and immediately got into the boat, and that night they caught nothing. But when the morning had now come, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Then Jesus said to them, Children, have you any food? They answered him, No. Then he said to them, Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some. So they cast, and now they were not able to draw it in because of the multitude of fish. Therefore the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, It is the Lord. Now when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for he had removed it, and plunged into the sea. But the other disciples came in the little boat, for they were not far from land, but about 200 cubits, dragging the net with fish. Then, as soon as they had come to land, they saw a fire of coals there, and fish laid on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, Bring some of the fish which you have caught. Simon Peter went up and dragged the net to land, full of large fish, 153. And although there were so many, the net was not broken. So from this account of John 21:1-11, we should remember that they caught exactly 153 fish and that the net was not broken. Then we've got the parable of the dragnet recorded in Matthew 13:47-50. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was cast into the sea and gathered some of every kind, which, when it was full, they drew to shore, and they sat down and gathered the good into vessels, but threw the bad away. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come forth, separate the wicked from among the just, and cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And Luke 5:1-7. So it was, as the multitude pressed about him to hear the word of God, that he stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw 2 boats standing by the lake. But the fishermen had gone from them and were washing their nets. Then he got into one of the boats, which was Simon's, and asked him to put out a little from the land. And he sat down and taught the multitudes from the boat. When he had stopped speaking, he said to Simon, Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch. But Simon answered and said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught nothing. Nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. And when they had done this, they caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And they came and filled both the boats so that they began to sink. So we've got these three gospel accounts about fish catching. In each of these three cases, the fish represent men. As we can see from such scriptures as these to Luke 5:10, from now on you will be catching men, Jesus says to the apostles, or Matthew 4:19, come after me and I will make you fishers of men. So it's clear that fish represent men. And the net represents the gospel message, the call of the gospel age, because just as literal fishermen used nets to catch fish, so God's servant, in order to catch people, use the gospel message, because it is the God's message which is meant to catch the attention of the people, to make them interested and willing to believe it and then live it out in their lives. This call, this gospel age call, went forth at the hands of the Lord's servants, that is, the fishermen. The gospel net was not intended to catch all the symbolic fish in the sea, that is, in the world, because the sea represents the world. Only a particular number, to be precise, 144,000 of a particular kind, was the object in view. In the parable of the dragnet in Matthew 13th chapter, there were gathered fish of every kind, representing real Christians, half-deceived and deluded Christians, and multitudes of unconsecrated Christians, imitation Christians, hypocrites, and so on, those that together constitute the great nominal church. The time of bringing the net to shore and of sorting the fish represents the gospel age harvest, the reckoning time. And when we come back to the dragnet parable, we can say that the good fish were gathered into vessels, various groups of spiritual elect, the little flock and the great company. But the bad, that is the unsuitable, were cast away back into the sea. The bad here represent the unconsecrated in general, that is, professed Christians. The unsuitable, only nominal Christians, those who during the harvest reaping time were not fit to be of the spiritual elective classes in the kingdom. They are represented here as cast back into the world. They got into the gospel net, but were not desired nor fit to be of the spiritual elect, to serve either in the throne or before the throne. They will be blessed with the rest of the world in the next age, when the symbolic fishing will be different, for a different purpose and on a much larger scale. In Matthew 13, 49, 50, we read, so it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come forth, separate the wicked from among the just, and cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. As in the wheat and tares parable, the furnace of fire in which there is weeping and gnashing of teeth symbolizes the great time of trouble, and the angels represent the reapers. Separating the wheat from the tares represents the same as separating the good fish from the bad, carried out by the fishermen from our parable. Bad people don't mean only the completely morally corrupt ones, but all the people not fit for elective salvation of the gospel age. They are bad not in the sense of being evil, but in the sense of being unsuitable for gospel age purposes. From a human standpoint, there are many decent or even noble people among them, among those who are called bad fish here. The account in Luke 5, 1:11 gives a more restricted viewpoint In that, no sorting, discarding, or casting back into the sea is mentioned. In the parable of Matthew 13:47-50, the separation of good fish from the unsuitable ones and the casting back of the unsuitable fish into the sea, that is the world, harmonizes with the prophecy in Zechariah 13:8-9, which prophecy says, "And it shall come to pass in all the land, says the Lord, that 2/3 in it shall be cut off and die, but 1/3 shall be left in it. I will bring the 1/3 through the fire, will refine them as silver is refined, and test them as gold is tested. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, this is my people, and each one will say, the Lord is my God." The two parts mentioned by Zechariah as cut off from the world are the little flock and the great company, which will, during the millennium, will not constitute the part of the world, as they will be a part of the spiritual phase of the kingdom, the ruling part. This third part, brought through the refining fire of the millennial age, is the non-elect world of mankind who will become God's people in restitution. Thanks to the restitution processes, which they will undergo during the millennium, they will be, at the end of it, they will be able to say, the Lord is my God, and more importantly, God will be able to say about them, this is my people. We are talking about the sheep of the millennial age here. But in Luke 5:17, this third part is not indicated, but only the two parts, the little flock and the great company. Here the net caught a great number of fish, and their net was breaking, and they filled both the boats so that they began to sink, and they were astonished at the catch of fish which they had taken. The gospel message during the gospel age gathered a great number of truly consecrated Christians, new creatures, far more than the foreordained number that was to constitute the bride of Christ. Most of them ended up as great company members. In John 21:1-11, a still more restricted viewpoint is given, for here it was not a great number of fish. Nevertheless, they were no longer able to draw the net because of the multitude of fish. Only the very elect, the little flock, is here indicated, very small in number compared to the great company, let alone the world of mankind, but yet by itself rather large in number, 145,000. The little flock was full and complete in its final membership by the fall of 1914, the end of the 40-year harvest reaping period. Then the plowman, that is the time of trouble, began to overtake the reaper, and it did so fully by the spring of 1916, when the sealing of the 1,044,000 in their forests was finished. By October 1914, God had begotten by his Spirit the full number of those who he knew would finally make up the great fish from John 21:11. Accordingly, in the fall of 1914, the door of entrance into the high calling closed, as the net was full, and they were no longer able to draw it. No more of the fish, those who would be of the little flock, were to be caught, and because of that, no more spirit begettals were to be made. This time the net did not break, for it was not overloaded. It contained only the foreordained number of 144,000, represented by the 153 great fish, The gospel net was designed and fully prepared to accomplish their catching. It was easily able to withstand their weight without breaking. In the parable from Matthew 13, the dragnet caught fish of every kind, good and bad, large and small. In Luke 5, verses 1 through 7, the great number of fish caused the rending of the meshes of the net due to the overload, and the fish filled the two boats to their capacity. In the Luke account, there is no indication as to the size of the fish. Probably the fish were both great and small, thus showing the greater development of the little flock and the lesser development of the great company. But in John 21, 1:11, the net was full of large fish, as the New King James says, or was full of great fish, as the King James Version says, which points to the little flock, all of whom were highly and fully developed, and thus were fitted for the highest attainment of the glory of the divine nature. Here again, there is no record that any fish were discarded, which supports our conclusion that the 153 great fish represent the little flock, the foreordained sons of God of the divine nature. All of them were great, none of them was cast back, and it is the only instance of fish catching when the exact number of the fish caught is stated. And the little flock is the only class of God's people whose exact number has been revealed to us by God. The precise number of any other class of God's people is nowhere specified in the Bible. For example, about the number of great company members, we know only that it is great in comparison with the number of the little flock, but we know no more as regards its exact size. And the same is true about other classes of God's people, the exact number of which was not given to us. The number 153 is hidden in some other places in the Bible as well, and there it also stands for the little flock. John 1:11 says that Jesus came unto his own, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become sons of God. If they had received him, the 144,000 would have consisted only of fleshly Israel. But many of them were broken off because of unbelief, and consequently the gospel was sent to the Gentiles to make up the lacking number. Jesus offered sonship first to the Jews, and as many as received him, to them gave he power to become sons of God. If we take into account the numeric values of the Hebrew letters for the expressions sons of God, namely Beni Ha Elohim, in the first line you can see this phrase in Hebrew, then we've got it transcribed using our letters, and below is the numeric numeric values of the 9 letters that in Hebrew constitute this expression. When we read it, there are more letters, but in Hebrew there are only 9, and the sum of them is 153. The expression sons of God, when we take into account the numeric value of the specific letters, gives us 153, because sons of God is, for the gospel age purposes, is another name for the little flock. So this sum of Beni Ha Elohim totals exactly 153, as representing the divinely ordained number, that is the 144,000 who would attain unto sonship as divine beings. It is significant that this number, 153, should first be found hidden in the phrase sons of God in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew language. For the call to sonship in Christ went out first only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, who were of the Hebrew race of the sons of Abraham. The full 144,000 sons of God, for which the 153 stands symbolically, would have been found in Abraham's natural seed, if some had not been broken off because of unbelief. During the Gospel age, God has visited the Gentiles, that is, the nations, to take out of them a people, the remainder of the predestined 144,000 for his name. Together with those from among the Jews, they are the little flock, those who are faithful unto death. Having suffered with Christ as members of his body, they are glorified together with him in the first resurrection as his joint heirs in the divine nature, just as Romans 8:17 says. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ, if indeed we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together. And the Greek word for joint heirs is also significant in this connection, because this word is suk kleronomoi. You can see it in the first line in the Greek alphabet, then transcribed into our alphabet, and below that we've got the numeric value of each letter. When we sum all the numeric values of the letters, we have 1071. And when we divide 1071 by 7, the number of divine perfection, we get 153, as if an answer to the question, how many of those will be who will get divine perfection? Well, they are symbolized in the number 153. So the 153 great fish in the unbroken net stand for the full number of 144,000 joint heirs with Christ, members of his body, who are called by the call to the divine nature and share it with him. And that's the end of my presentation. Okay, and also the end of the discourse, just in time. I managed. I wish you all God's blessing from these considerations.